A Bidoo. Do I need to say more? Do I need to say more? I don't think I do. This is a company that has conquered the world in the third-party market, and they are bringing to us their brand new Ultimate controller with the Ultimate 2. Of course, we'll put it through a strings of tests, as I usually do, and talk about if it's worth your money. What have they brought new to the table? Oh, by the way, thank you for sending it for review. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. It was sent for review. Let's not waste a second more and dive in. To start with, a dock. The 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Can always leave it plugged in and just plug your dock. That'll be enough to connect your controller wirelessly. They changed it to a USB-C connector, so it'll work easier for devices such as your Steam Deck, for example. It's not officially set to work on the Steam Deck, but I can confirm it does. We'll talk about it a little more during the testing portion. No longer do they put a manual. We now have a cheat sheet instead, which honestly, I like this change. I don't mind this change as long as all the shortcuts, the important things are here. It's also a controller that is designed to be used mainly with their software. As far as I know, I haven't seen shortcuts on the controller. Something we'll also address shortly. Rubber branded cable seems short enough, and that is it. Let's talk about the buttons. We have membrane, very traditional, nice feeling, springy, a bit on the noisier side as far as a membrane button goes, but they feel good. We have a tactile short travel D-pad, so essentially it feels very much like the D-pad on the 2C. A little bit different. This one feels a little easier to maneuver. I wasn't a big fan of the one found on the 2C. Maybe it's better here. We'll find out. We have TMR sticks. They're a little bit, just a little bit convex. They almost feel flat, if being honest. Very soft rubber. Probably a stick if you are into aiming and you like a stick that grips to your thumb. That is not it. You're probably going to want to use stick caps on these ones. Tactile for all your face buttons. Oh, very tactile shoulders. And then of course we have our triggers, which have little to no dampening at all. If there is any, it's so minute. I feel it almost feels like it's more of a soft plastic inside than it is a membrane of some kind to dampen the triggers. I don't think they are. Tactile back paddles. You also have tactile extra buttons on the top, and you have hair triggers, and they're proper buttons hair trigger, not locked and software corrected. Your pogo pins, and then you have a switch in the back for your Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz. The ergonomic is exactly, if you ever had a C, a 2C, a Ultimate, that hasn't changed. Holding it, it has probably one of the best ergonomics I've seen for these two top buttons. You don't really have to claw it. In fact, I don't think it's a nice controller to claw. But as far as like accessing those extra buttons without having to do so, it actually feels really good and very easy to do it. Feels like a very natural position. I kind of get the feel that it transformed what is a shape that we already know into something that is a little more intentional with your extra buttons that you have, but you are limited in terms of what you can do with them, which we'll see when talking about the software. Now, when we power it up, you have your RGB. It's probably going to be hard to pick up because this thing is fairly bright, and as far as I know, we cannot address the brightness. You can change with modes, and you can make custom ones, which is what I have here. Again, we'll look at all that into the software. You have rumble, rotary. You have Bluetooth, dongle, as well as wired using the USB-C up top. You have your pairing button here, and what seems to be attachment for a clip, but usually with the 8BitDo's controllers, you have the attachment top and bottom, and we're not seeing the clip. So I don't know if they're looking to design a different one or there's one on the market that I'm not familiar with, but usually these little notches are for phone clips. And just so we're clear, this will not work on your iPhone. I tried. It's a no-go, be it wired dongle or Bluetooth, changing the modes, doesn't matter. It just doesn't work on iPhones. It works on Android though. Let's move to my PC where I did a lot of testing. And as we head there, let's have a quick chat about today's sponsor, QQH. QQH wants you to know about their Z12-3 portable monitor. With 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz, this alloy body panel offers impeccable compatibility for your phones, handheld PCs, and much more. Using the included Type-C cable, you'll go from squinting at your phone to having a nicely built monitor, cover stand included, and catch up on your favorite shows, game using your favorite consoles, and increase productivity with the help of this panel. The best part? How affordable that this screen is. Don't miss out on their current deals and offers. Click the link in the description for great savings. This controller is fully compatible with software. The software is fairly simple. There's not a whole lot of options in there, but everything that is there does work great. So we'll kind of fly through some of the different things that you can do. Of course, you can update your controller. You have to create a profile, which you can have up to 3 on each controllers, and you can rotate using the button specific to it. And before I forget, top right, you do have some general settings as well that you can adjust. Once you've created your profile, you can step in it to make some changes. You can change all the mappings on your controller. As far as I know, there are no turbo, which is often found on that page in many software out there. And you also don't have anything like keyboard support or mouse buttons. Anything like that is just not present. You can only change to what is already on the controller. You do, however, have macros, and it's a very powerful and well-designed tool. I did not max out the number of inputs because it just kept on going and going. You can adjust your timings. You can also remove the release of your button so that it stays pressed, and then you can loop, or you can have it repeated a specific amount of time. Very, very good macro on the 8BitDo Ultimate 2. When looking at sticks, we have a few good things, but it's a little bare bone. You can address the dead zone for both your left and right stick independently. You can invert your axes on both the left and right as well. You can swap your left and right joystick or swap the D-pad with the left joystick. Unfortunately, there are no curve adjustment tools in here. Triggers, which also bare bone, but the necessary is here. You can address your dead zone starting and ending dead zone, as well as swapping your left trigger and right trigger if needed. Vibration, you can address the left or right motor independently and test them by holding LT or RT. Here comes the part that is really cool, the RGB. Now, you don't have a whole lot of effects predetermined as options, but what is cool is you can customize up to 12 unique points around each of your sticks. So that is a total of 24 different LEDs that you can control and fully customize to your liking. That honestly was a really impressive touch. And you don't even have to go with preset colors here. You can address the old hex code and just really go for whatever you want. That is something I have never seen before, and a pretty cool feature if you're into RGB. Lastly, we have gyro, and though the options seem extremely basic, I would urge you not to sleep on it if you get this controller, because the implementation is absolutely phenomenal. They did a great job when it comes to gyro. You just don't have a whole lot that you can tweak, but what is there just works so good right out the box. Let's move to a super quick audio test, and right after, gamepad and gaming tests. As we mentioned earlier, we have TMR sticks on the Ultimate 2. Tremor, everything was cool, nothing wrong to report. Same goes for axis snapping, I couldn't perceive any at all. There's definitely snapback if that's something you were hoping not to see. Unfortunately, it's there. At least at this point in time, there is no ability to adjust the circularity of your sticks. So all that we have here is a raw reading, and left and right did not get the exact same result. Continuing with D-pad, when focusing on diagonals, I was not getting a 100% success rate, but never to the point that I would consider that to be a problem. The rolling test was pleasant, also both for the physical aspect and the overall readings, but there were some occasional accidental up arrows that I was just not trying to do. Hitting adjacent directions on this controller is easily achieved, and the feeling was consistent through each arrow, which surprisingly enough is not usually the case. Here it was very consistent across the board. For accidental inputs, for the most part it was good, but when going from left to right very consistently and rapidly, that's where it showcased the most. In that specific movement, you might occasionally run into it. There is a center pivot, a small one. Impossible to push it down without hitting a key. But when trying to hit other keys from the center, it's also extremely easy to do, easy to maneuver from the center pivot. Probably one of the smoothest controllers I've seen specifically for that. And lastly, trigger. There is a little bit of dead zone at the start of it. That is despite having the software at 0 dead zone. And at the end of the actuation, there was so little that I would consider it to not have dead zone. Dampening. As we mentioned earlier, there's so little of it that it's basically like there isn't at all. And the hair trigger is indeed a button and not just a trigger stop with software correction. Okay, aiming. So the sticks, TMR, great, awesome.
Do they feel great? Unfortunately, I wouldn't say so. Could you aim with them? Yes, you can, but they're just not designed for that specifically, and there is much better on the market when it comes down to aiming and being precise with your sticks. They have too aggressive a curve, they don't feel linear, and you cannot adjust them, so you're stuck with what is in the controller. The tension is nice, that's no problem. We're at 65 TGF. Even the resolution, it's great. We're at 0.0004. So again, not an issue there. They need tweaking. Until we have the ability to tweak them, I would not consider this controller viable for serious aiming use. And the other problem that I also have with this controller is the tension of the triggers, which yes, you have hair trigger, but even then you still need to go through the tension a little bit. And I find it's not ideal for rapid action shooting. For my second round, I mapped RT to the top right paddle, and it was a little better. In fact, I increased my score right then and there. But what really saved the third round to give me a much better score was to introduce gyro to assist with the aiming, and wow, this controller has great gyro implementation. If you buy it, I would urge you to activate the feature. It's just there's not a whole lot of settings like as we've seen, but it works so good. Just straight out of the box, it was really responsive and reliable. The way that they tweaked it is close to perfection, with really just a handful of controllers that can match it in terms of output. Really great gyro implementation here. Ladies and gentlemen, it has happened. For the first time, I see a tactile D-pad that I feel could rival a membrane or a mechanical one. This is probably one of the best tactile D-pads I've ever seen in a controller. Please know that this is not like the 2C, it is much better. They have given me something I didn't think was possible, so GG's 8BitDo, this is awesome. For precision platformers, great as well, but I believe it will require a little more time just to get accustomed to the D-pad and really land the actuations exactly where you need to every time, because that center pivot does great work at adjacent directions, but sometimes a little too much. So a little bit of effort, but once you get there, it'll be awesome. And lastly, run. And these later stages in this game requires pinpoint accuracy in terms of your precision, and that's where a low travel tactile D-pad can be so useful. But usually the key stick, like, it's never as good as the one that we have here, and I can't stress this enough. 8BitDo did such a great job with that D-pad, and it shows up with that game as well. Don't look at my gameplay with this one, I got lost in the sandbox and I was playing like trash! Another great thing about the triggers, while they're not necessarily nice for shooters, for racing games, that tension really shows up. Like, it gives you very precise control of your pedals, quote unquote. So that's also something I believe this controller will be great at, which is racing games that will require accuracy with your triggers. Performance, pulling rate was, oh my, so stable across the board. If you use wired or dongle, you're getting that 1000 Hertz or very close to. And also when it comes to Bluetooth, we don't get past 125 Hertz, but it is extremely stable. I'd say great performance. When looking at latency, dang, this controller is fast. After everything, so that's cable, screen, all of it, I had 14 milliseconds on button, 16 millisecond on stick. This is the best latency controller I have benchmarked so far. And before moving towards the end, in terms of compatibility, I did try on the iPhone. Unfortunately, no matter the method, wired, dongle, Bluetooth, it doesn't work. I also tried the exact same on the Switch, doesn't work either. And I did work on the Steam Deck, and that worked on wired and dongle. It did not work on Bluetooth. The Ultimate 2. Well, first of all, I'm super happy that we now have this controller in our collections. Is it a controller I'd recommend? Very easily so, but for very specific reasons. One, I really have to commend 8BitDo on what I probably consider to be the best tactile D-pad I've ever seen. They definitely made changes versus the 2C version. That one it's not flawless. There were some accidental inputs here and there, but being a short travel tactile, they really nailed an amazing balance with the center pivot and just the ease of movement for just about any type of game that will require the D-pad. It's a D-pad that you will have to adapt to, mainly for the fact that if you try to go faster than it is designed to go at, that's where you start getting accidental inputs. It's just not designed for like super speed, but
it's still fast enough. And once you find the balance in terms of speed and just really tame that D-pad, it's a great one. So GG 8BitDo on that. I was really shocked. I didn't get it with the 2C, but I think they kept on moving and improving, and that to me is what should be the 1.0 new D-pad from 8BitDo. This is it. This is the one that has it, and greatly achieved. The other thing which I mentioned quickly during the testing is, well, you know what, let's talk about this as a whole. This is not a controller for aiming, in my opinion. If I was to guess, I think they probably have the same modules that we find in the KK3 standard, which, yes, they're TMR, but it was, to this day, the worst TMRs I've seen in a controller. And as far as I'm concerned, 8BitDo has probably just taken modules from what I would assume is Goalie Kit. I haven't opened it. This is just a wild guess. So if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But I think these are the same sticks as the one found on the KK3 standard, with basically no modifications, no adjustments. It feels like a drop-in. And let me clarify this. You're playing a third person, you're playing anything that does not require precision aiming, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be absolutely fine. And I'm not trying to say that you just cannot aim with those sticks. You can, but it's considering what is on the market at such different price points, it's just not built for that. It's not something that shines on this controller when trying to do that specifically with it. The gyro, wow, this is the only controller next to Blitz 2 that I've seen has such a good gyro, because of the fact that you put it on, you put it off, it's just gonna work, and it's gonna work great. But I do wish there were more settings so that you can customize it to your own, something that the Blitz 2 has that this one doesn't. So it's maybe the one thing, but as far as what is there, what is presented, it is peak gyro experience. So if you buy this controller and you're trying to play aiming games, I would urge you to activate that feature and try it for yourself, because it will drastically improve performance and just the overall experience. You don't have to deal with the non-linear curve of the sticks, which cannot be addressed on this controller. Another disappointment for when it comes to aiming. But gyro is there to basically give you that option if that's really what you're trying to do. So I love that this is a thing on the Ultimate 2. In terms of modes, in terms of compatibility, we have so little compared to a lot of controllers on the market. You don't have iOS support, you don't have the Switch support, you technically don't have an official Steam Deck support. I'm glad that it's working. There's important devices that are not here, but I understand because 8BitDo entered a lot of licensing agreements with a lot of companies, so I think they are contractually bound to not pretend like they don't know or that they don't care. You know, they are committed to some of those companies, maybe in the past, but once you enter a contract, that's just the name of the game. So I don't think this is something that will change either. That's just the way that it is now. All in all, I like what 8BitDo brought. A little bit of an upcharge compared to competitors, especially when thinking about the Cyclone 2, which is probably the controller that is most logical to pin it with. So it will become a question of preference. Do you prefer the ergonomics here? Do you prefer membrane buttons? Do you prefer having greater gyro? But its main competition is the Cyclone 2 for sure. There are areas where I think the Cyclone 2 just completely demolishes this one, just like there are areas where this one shines overall better. The D-pad implementation is better here, for an example, whereas the sticks are better on the Cyclone 2. The gyro is better here. Software is great on both, but ultimately in terms of options, GameSir demolishes the Ultimate 2 when it comes to software options. So they each have their pros and cons. It comes down to what you prefer, but I think whereas the Cyclone 2 probably dominates the 40, 50, 60 range right now, this is probably the closest contender we've seen today in that price point. This is the conclusion. I am super happy with it. I think 8BitDo brought a great controller to market. I like the fact that they're offering different colors, and I would assume that they will continue to have different colors as well. Love the feature with the LEDs. That's a nice touch that we really haven't seen anywhere else. So to customization also is a great aspect. And while you don't have all the crazy things that a lot of controllers have in terms of shortcuts on the product, for example, thinking of the Goalie Kit controllers, you have buttons that will just work, right? One button to change your profile, one button to change your RGB. It's not complicated. You get four extra buttons, 2 up top, 2 in the back. I like what they're doing, and this is a controller that is definitely gonna sit in my rotation so that I can play more and more with it over time, because it was at least that good, that pleasant to me. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any feedback, make sure to let me know. As always, consider dropping a like if you enjoy this content, and to subscribe to not miss any future ones. I'm Clef, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. 8-bit do, 8-bit do, 8-bit do, 8-bit do, 8-bit do, not 8-bit, 8-bit do. All right.